of the nicest jobs in the world. I get to do human-computer interaction, which is my subject area, and artificial intelligence. And I get to apply it to sex. Why not? I guess. I think when I started doing this about 3 years ago, a lot of people academics were quite skeptical. I would get some really mixed reactions, like, that's not a real subject. But when you start looking at the things that are involved, there are some major ethical questions. There are a lot of questions around privacy, security, being human, and the future of that, and what's going to happen to us as technology progresses. So I'm very interested in technological changes in society, and I think this is a great opportunity. We are living in a society where we know that loneliness is a big factor. That's why we're getting a minister for loneliness. And we have this technology that I'm quite optimistic about. So I feel that technology is quite positive in helping people stay in contact and be intimate. And I do quite a bit of work on the ethics of AI, and the problem is we don't even have a standard code of ethics for humans. We can't agree on that. The closest we can get is the Declaration of Human Rights, which is just more outcomes that we want rather than how we're going to get there. So to try and take ethical stances and put them into machines, it's very, very hard to do that, to codify it. So where do we even start with that? Who decides what those right things are? And there's a lot of things that arise from that. We have the sex robots, the big debate around that, which is, should people be able to have child versions of those, for example? That's an enormous ethical dilemma. What happens when sex technology stores your data? Who owns it? What happens if it's leaked? If it's breached, people's lives can be at risk from this kind of thing. So there are big ethical questions, but how we actually incorporate that into AI is another issue. There's quite a lot of coverage on sex robots, for example, where people get really, really scared, and this also it's a big headline grabber. I mean, the headlines that come out about this are just incredible. But the reality of it is that there aren't any in existence. There are prototypes of some, and they are all basically mechanized sex dolls. There's nothing particularly exciting going on here, and you couldn't really class them as robots, to be honest. So a robot is a machine that can perform a series of quite complex tasks autonomously and can be programmed. So, but we have robots around us already in industry, surgery, war, the military, and they don't take humanoid forms. But when we think of the sex robots, when we think of service robots, companion robots, we tend to think of the human form. Is there something intrinsically there that makes us think that that's what they should be? I think we're very, very, we know we can form relationships with machines really easily. There's been lots of research on this, and even an interaction with a laptop where you're giving instructions to a machine that's not going to talk back to you or anything. Even that we act socially towards. We're conditioned because we are humans working in a social world. We form that rapport very, very easily. It's made easier for us when there are humanoid features, 2 eyes and something that resembles a mouth. But to go into that kind of android and gynoid degree of realism, where you are trying to make a machine, trying to make a robot that looks realistically human, we're not very good at it. And there's this concept of the uncanny valley that says the closer we get to something that looks real, the more it freaks us out. Yeah. And I kind of think that why are we doing that? Why are we trying to cross that divide? And if you think about sex toys, they started off 30,000 years ago. They started off as basically genital representations. And it's progressed over time, and we've ended up with these very beautiful, very abstract, ornamental almost, sex toys. And it's moved into a design phase rather than an engineering phase. And so why aren't we doing that with robotics? So instead of thinking about here is a robot you can have sex with, why not think about here is some kind of device, some kind of interactive machine, interactive toy, that is more embodied than a regular sex toy, which I think is the nice thing about the rise in maker communities means that hackathons and development work can be done fairly cheaply now with off-the-shelf components. 2 years ago, December 2016, I ran the UK's first sex tech hackathon, which when I had the idea was just, we'll get maybe 10 people in a room and we'll saw up some vibrators and we'll put them back in interesting combinations. My students are much more visionary than that, and they said, no, we're going to get 50 people in a room and we're going to build things from scratch. And they did, they helped me organise it. And it was wonderful. We did get 50 people in a deconsecrated church at Christmas. And we brought them together, and it wasn't just techies, it wasn't just computer science students or engineers, it was artists, musicians, material scientists, you know, programmers, psychologists. We had a real mix, we had a very diverse demographic. And over 24 hours, they created 14 prototypes that were just fascinating. I mean, we had things like how to get around porn filters, you know, that were brought in by the Digital Economy Bill. We had someone make a sexual cryptocurrency where you had a physical wallet and you had to stimulate it until it generated a coin. She's so cool. It was great. We had someone else built a fist vibrator that vibrated in time to stock market fluctuations. Oh my god. So there was just it was wonderful, and we had the kids' toy buckets. There was that for multiplayer sex games. All sorts of things. It was so much fun. So we ran it again. We ran it again in November last year, and it became much more immersive. So I found myself on a Sunday morning again in this church, lying on a sensory hammock with these sort of tubes wrapped around me that would inflate and kind of squeeze me. And, you know, shawls that you could put over you that had little sensors in, so that if you watched VR or any kind of augmented reality, you could feel the physical sensations on your skin. So you can have it rose-colored. The recent deepfake stuff that's going on with people's face being superimposed on porn. I mean, that's easy to do now, and it's one of the, I'm usually very pro development of technology, but that one scares the hell out of me. I think it's dangerous, and it, you know, the sort of repercussions of things like revenge porn there are just huge. You could spin it and say, oh well, we could have, you know, computer generated porn now, and then there's less chance of exploitation in the industry. But I just think the risk there is too great. The same around privacy. There have been at least 3 smart sex toy hacks in the past 2 years. So data has been either leaked, and then you get, you know, blackmail, for example. So like the Ashley Madison dating app, where people were committing suicide over the data being leaked. But also there was a company called WeVibe that is one of the first major cases, and they've been collecting data from the vibrator, which is not unusual to be able to make a better product. But they had collected frequency of use, they'd collected vibration patterns, and they'd also collected vaginal temperature, which on its own might be a little bit, but they had linked it to the email addresses without anonymizing it. And so people's details were being stored linked to their email address. This whole, you know, it's sensitive information, and in some places, the information that sex tech stores about you, your sexual behaviour, that's enough to get you killed in places. I think that's absolutely terrifying. And while you might think, well, you know, I'm nothing to hide really, I think when you see, you suddenly find yourself in a situation where, say, a country is checking all your electronic devices as you come through a border, it starts getting a little scary. So we had an academic conference about this a couple of years ago, and one of the people there was working on her MSc, MA, and she'd been working with a brothel in Liverpool, and she was saying that the sex workers there had said that if they could get that technology, the reason they would have it would be because it was a big draw for clients, but they didn't see it replacing them. It's really difficult. The sex industry is just so vast that I don't think that we will be able to, or may not even want to, bring in the equivalent of sex dolls, sex robots. Although there are sex doll brothels open, for quite a while in Japan they've had those, and now they're coming to Europe. There was one in Barcelona, but it was shut down quite quickly. I think there's one in Berlin as well now. So I think it could have some impact, but I don't think it will be disruptive to it. So if you're wearing a health tracker of some sort, you know, you've got your heart rates, you've got your galvanic skin content, you've got you can measure muscle movements, you can measure, with off-the-shelf equipment, you can measure brain waves of whether you're relaxed or stressed. To take that information from your body and feed it back into a piece of technology that reacts to your body would be fascinating.
Fully encrypted, no risk of hacking.
Fully encrypted. And there are people out there, there are white hat hackers out there who work on this. They work on sex technology to check that there are no vulnerabilities. So there's a project called the Internet of Dongs, which is just the best name ever.
Dongs?
Dongs, yeah.
I love that.
It's really good. And it's a hacker who looks for loopholes in the tech.
Yeah.
The potential for technology to join us together and to create communities, whether it's through internet groups and forums, whether it's through dating sites or through virtual reality, I think the potential is far greater than the risks.
Wonderful.